Okay. Oh, Chandananda ඇහෙනවද? චන්දමහාන්දර මෙහි සද්ද ඇහෙනව නේද?
සද්ද ඇහෙන්නේ නැහැ. එහෙනම් කතා කරනවා. මයික් එක ඔෆ් කරලා කියලා බලන්න.
ඔව්. ඇහෙනවද? ඔව්. ඇහෙනවද?
ඇහෙනවද? හරි. එනවා කියලා කිව්වේ. මොකද දැන් ඉස්සෙල්ලා වුනේ.
Hari ned. Okay. I can hear you very well. Yeah, Bhante Chandananda, are you there?
Padihandrin Padak.
Yeah.
He's come soon.
We are on live, huh? Already.
Okay, Bhante, please wait a moment.
වෙනස් කරන්න අමාරුනේ.
Yeah, Bhante, you have to unmute your. Yeah. Yeah, please unmute.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Okay, started. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Good evening, everyone, and good morning, everyone. Dear Bhante, today we're going to bring a very special monk over to our discussion talk series. If you take a look at the past couple of years, we've been doing a lot of Dhamma discussions, primarily by myself. But I and our Nayaka Hamduru, we decided to invite other monks too, so that we can, learn from them, because this is all learning, and different monks see differently. At the same time, they have their own ways of explaining the Dhamma without, destroying the Dhamma's pristine meaning. So today, I would like to welcome Bhante Matthumagala Chandananda Thero. And Bhante Matthumagala Chandananda and I, we know for some time, and he currently lives in Calgary, Ehipasiko Buddhist Meditation Center in Calgary. He's the monk there, the chief resident monk there. Bhante Chandananda entered the Buddhist order in 2003 as a student of Venerable Kiri Orue Dhammananda Nayaka Thero and Venerable Dr. Kukulpane Sudasi Thero. Upon completion of monastic training from highly esteemed Sri Vinayalankara Rama Temple in Pokonuvita, this is the place where the very famous senior monk called Venerable Rerukani Chandimala Thero Mahathero lived. Bhante Chandananda is from that temple, and he received his full ordination in 2004. After that, he earned his BA degree in Buddhist philosophy in 2009 and the MA degree in 2010 from the Buddhist and Pali University of Sri Lanka. He also successfully completed a diploma in psychology and counseling at the Institute of Psychological Studies in Sri Lanka. And he's been in Canada for a long time. I guess it's almost a decade. And his first entry point was Edmonton, and he's been there for a long time. As well as he served as a Buddhist chaplain at the University of Alberta for 2 years. And then he moved out to Winnipeg, Manitoba. There's a Sri Lankan temple. And he was also the chief resident monk in that temple for some time. After that, I think he spent some time in Vancouver, the Buddhist Vihara Society in Vancouver. And then he moved out to Calgary to take the abbotship of the temple, Ehipasiko Buddhist Meditation Center. So so he's an interesting monk, and he has a meditation background too. And all in all, I think he's a good fit for our program. And he's going to talk about one of the very important, if I say the key aspects of the Buddhism. It is none other than the Four Noble Truths. But he let me know that because the Four Noble Truth is the fundamental teaching of Buddhism, so he will give a Dhamma talk about the first two truths, Dukkha Arya Satcha and Dukkha Samudaya Arya Satcha. Dukkha Arya Satcha means the noble truth about Dukkha, and the second Arya Satcha is the noble truth on the cause of the Dukkha. And he will be talking about the rest of the two Arya Satchas, noble truths, next Monday. So I respectfully welcome Bhante Chandananda to our temple's Monday discussion of talk series. Bhante Chandananda, over to you, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Venerable Dr. Gangodavilla Chandima Thero. So I would like to start our sermon now. Samanta Chakavalesu Atra Gacchantu Devata Saddhammang Munirajasa Sunantu Sanghamokkadang Dhammasavana Kalo Ayam Bhadanta Dhammasavana Kalo Ayam Bhadanta Dhammasavana Kalo Ayam Bhadanta Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Idang ko pana bhikkhave dukkhaṃ ariya saccang jati pi dukkha jara pi dukkha vyadi pi dukkho maranam pi dukkhaṃ appiyehi sampayogo dukkho piyehi vipayogo dukkho Sankitena panchupadana kanda dukkati. Dear Venerable Sir and dear friends of Dhamma, so this the teaching of Four Noble Truths, it is a very central teaching to Buddhist doctrine. Actually, there are about 17,000 discourses compiled in our canon. All those other discourses, what we call suttas, can be introduced as footnotes to this central teaching of Four Noble Truths. It is so important. However, no matter how important this is, generally, ordinary people, they do not like much to hear this, especially if we start to give some down-to-earth, very outspoken teaching of how true Buddha was when he said things like dukkhe loko patittito. Once Venerable Ananda, the chief assistant of the Buddha, he asked Venerable Master, where does the world exist? And Buddha said, world exists on dukkha. So it says everything, right? Without leaving any doubt. So the problem is, normally people, by and large, they have a sense of beauty with regard to the world. They want to see essence in non-essence. So this is the whole problem which drag us in this samsaric journey, the aimless wandering of this samsaric journey. So people do not like much to invest time in this kind of talk, especially if we delve deep into this topic. However, Buddha said that this realization of the Four Noble Truths is accompanied only by happiness and joy. So that happiness and joy is not the happiness of sensual gratification. It is really a spiritual kind of joy. It is spiritual happiness. It is untainted happiness. And Buddha pointed out that spiritual happiness or unworldly happiness, it is much greater, it is more fulfilling than the ordinary happiness, worldly happiness, which is shared even by, low kind of beings and crows, cats, dogs, etc. Those animals also, they also enjoy the worldly happiness. But here, Buddha came to this world to teach us how to tap into this unworldly happiness or spiritual happiness. So this realization of Four Noble Truths is accompanied only by happiness and joy. So that is very important. So dear friends, we have to, okay, also I would like to, now why some people do not like to hear that very much, because their ego is bit challenged. That is one reason. That is why it is uncomfortable. Here I would like to show you some analogy. Now let's say a child just after the birth is not going to enjoy very nutritious, heavy food. First he is given breast milk, right? Then he has to wean out. Slowly he is introduced to some protein rich food, maybe in a mushy form. Mother or grandfathers, they make it very chewable in that sense, in that level. And after some time, some heavy stuff, nutritious and that kind of food, which is enjoyed, consumed by adults, we can give. So in many stages, the newborn child, he wean out, he let go the baby stuff, baby food, and start to consume better food, adult-like food, which are suitable for growing children. Likewise, what we also have to do is, in many stages, we have to wean out the bad habit of always going after this worldly happiness. We have to understand these Four Noble Truths. And it really makes sense. Once actually Buddha said, he asked, "O monks, if your clothing or head has caught fire, what you should do?" Monks said, "Oh, if our head or worn clothes, if they have caught fire, first and foremost thing we should do is we have to extinguish that fire." Then Buddha said, "Monks, I tell you, even in that kind of very terrifying situation where your head or the clothes are burning, even in that moment, you have to give priority to realize Four Noble Truths." So actually, what really justifies Buddha's saying, that kind of fire, which can be said as an external fire, right? It can kill you for the most only once. You will be killed only once, right? But the fires of ignorance, fires within us, they will continue to kill us because they hide the truth. And we are just lured into renewed existence. And in that way, if we do not realize Four Noble Truths and see through the veil of delusion or ignorance, the number of deaths we are going to suffer in the future, it is not even 100 deaths. It's more than even 1,000 deaths. It is more than million deaths. The number of deaths we are going to suffer is sort of uncountable. That is why Buddha said, rather than these external fires, the fires within us, they are far more dangerous. So, dear friends, I will remind you the Four Noble Truths in brief, right? So, first one, the noble truth of dukkha or unsatisfactoriness. Second one, the noble truth of the cause of that dukkha. Third one, the noble truth of the cessation of that unsatisfactoriness or dukkha. Fourth one, the path leading to the cessation of that dukkha or unsatisfactoriness. So here we should learn the meaning of dukkha. Actually, it is difficult to translate this Pali term dukkha into a foreign language with all its nuances and that the richness of that particular term. So scholars have given some words in English. Some scholars have translated it as suffering, right? Some have given the term unsatisfactoriness. I think as some scholars have given the term, dukkha might denote, it could be a better translation, could be pervasive unsatisfactoriness, right? The term dukkha means futile, empty, unsatisfactory nature. In its broad connotation, it includes not only physical pain, it is futile, empty, unsatisfactory nature. So the first of the noble truths, the noble truth of dukkha. Once Buddha said, "O monks, if somebody question you and ask, what is the noble truth of dukkha or unsatisfactoriness, you have to answer, noble truth of dukkha is the 5 aggregates subject to clinging." This is a very important explanation. In short, what is called dukkha? Dukkha is the 5 clinging aggregates. So why actually now this broad topic, it elicits many subtopics and other themes to penetrate these 4 noble truths. We should learn them. So the more we learn about 5 aggregates, deeper we can go in this important awakening, enlightening topic of 4 noble truths. It would be very helpful to learn that according to Buddhism, very huge, big, gigantic things we see in the world are just illusions, right? Isn't that very thought-provoking and enlightening? It could be mind-boggling for some people to hear that in this world, many things which appear to be very big are just optical illusions, so to speak. They do not exist in an ultimate sense. They exist in a conceptual sense in our mind. Examples are, men, women, horses, cows, trees, mountains, rocks, right? They are very prominent in ordinary people's mind, but they do not actually exist in a very deeper level, deeper sense. Why it is said so? So we should understand. Let's take as an example those very huge, seemingly very big, super things. If we analyze them, that those conventions like men, women, cow, etc., they will disappear. Actually, those big, huge things are just components. They are just separated items, components. When they are put together, they appear very big things in this world. So Dhamma explains in Samyutta Nikaya, Vajira Sutta explains this using an analogy of a cart. Now we have these days vehicles, cars. So let's try to understand what is this optical illusion like thing. So a car means a combination of certain parts. In a car, what makes a car is there are 4 wheels, some axles, the engine, many nuts and bolts, steel plates, that chassis, some seats. So if in a garage, these things, as bundles, let's say some bundle of bolts, nuts, some steel sheets, 4 tires, etc. If they are found in a garage, separated, not assembled, right? We do not call it a car. The same components, if they are arranged in a particular way, they should be arranged in a certain particular way. Then the convention called car or vehicle comes up. Likewise, Buddha pointed out what we call these men, women, tree, mountain, etc. They are also some heaps, certain bundles of tiny components. So it's very important to note that we have these men, women, etc. We use that in a conventional sense. It is true in a conventional sense. But in an ultimate sense, if we analyze them, what we really find in this material body, in what we call matter, is just 4 elements. 4 elements, right? So although these 4 elements, actually, namely, they are in our mindfulness meditation, when our mindfulness and wisdom deepen, we can understand for ourselves, not because some teacher or Buddha said, we can see for ourselves that certain elements which were hidden behind the curtain of these conventions like man, woman, cow, etc., they will come to surface. They are Patavi, the earth element, water element, heat element, and air element. So those things, they are not so popular in ordinary people's mind. And what is interesting is, although they are not so popular, they exist in a deeper level. And above all, it is very important to understand that, many defilements like greed, aversion, delusion, which torment these beings, humans, in many ways, they have their footing on those conventions. If we can gradually remove our focus from these conventions, and if we can spend more time on those elements like hardness, Patavi element or water element, in that level, most of the defilement which are called torturers, tormentors, our real enemies, they will not have a footing. So it's very important to note that also. So dear friends, now there are 5 aggregates. We should know them. It is good to learn them, right? First one, Pali term is Pancha Upadana Kanda. That means 5 aggregates subject to clinging. Why they are called 5 aggregates subject to clinging? Because of our ignorance, not knowing, our mind attribute a sense of a self, a sense of a lasting permanent self onto these 5 aggregates, and we cling onto that, we grasp that. And this is the root cause of all the suffering we face in the aimless wandering of this samsaric journey. So first of the aggregates, which is very prominent and it is responsible for a huge part of our suffering. This is called this material body, matter. So this world could be divided mainly into 2, that is name and form, or mind or matter. When that is further analyzed, we will find 5 aggregates. First of the aggregates is material reality, corporeality. Our material body is an example, right? Second one, Vedana is the Pali term. It is feelings or feeling tone. Third one, there's a mental component called perception or recognition, sanya. Fourth one, there is a component called mental formations. Fifth one, the consciousness. These are the 5 aggregates subject to clinging or clinging aggregates. So the first one, Rupaskanda or material body. As I told you earlier, if we analyze, actually, we will find that it is made out of basically these 4 elements. Out of those 4 elements also, normally the earth element is more prominent. It is good to have a good understanding about that, and this topic is directly connected to the meditation, bhavana also. So in Mahasatipatthana Sutta, in Dhammanupassana, there is a link, correlation, and also under the mindfulness of body, Kaya Anupassana, also we find this topic. It is so important to understand, so liberating to understand this. So this, our body, when our mindfulness and wisdom grows with our spiritual practice, we will, those conventions like I, me, man, woman, etc., at least in the meditation time slot, at least in the meditation cushion, or in that time period, during that time period where you engage in dedicated spiritual practice of mindfulness meditation, you will find some beautiful moments in which you will see through the delusion of this the conventional reality, and your mind will focus on it, will anchor your mind on these elements. Then you will understand for yourself, oh wow, now this is that earth element. Earth element, we have some sense of earth element as the hardness and softness, right? As the hardness and softness, we feel it. It is experiential. We can directly know with our wisdom. And the hilarious thing is, paradoxical thing is, these elements, this Paramattha Dhamma or ultimate Dhamma, we can know for ourselves that, but however, this concept called I, or man, woman, he, she, etc., that is not subjected to any of your senses. It is not a direct experience. Why it is not a direct experience? Because such a thing does not exist in a deeper, ultimate sense. So we have to further understand about this, right? There is a lot to learn. So here, Buddha also wanted us to understand, to one day to enjoy the bliss of liberation, right? Buddha said, now this, when earth element is taken into consideration from our body, what are the examples for earth element? Our hair of the head, hair of the body, flesh, bones, nails, etc. They are examples for earth element. And what are the examples for earth element from the external world, so-called external world? Earth element found in the external world are, trees, rocks, sand, that kind of hard things. They come under this earth element. And Buddha emphatically said that there is no essential difference between the external earth element and the internal earth element. So why it is important, I will tell you, right? Now, in this journey to understand, penetrate these Four Noble Truths, we also should learn the three hallmarks of the existence. Buddha said, emphatically Buddha said, stress that Sabbya Sankara Anicchati, all conditioned things are impermanent. What are conditioned things? Whatever you perceive through your ordinary unenlightened mind are conditioned things. Nothing in the world stands on its own. Everything should be supported by some factors, and those factors also based on some other factors. So actually things are very helpless in this world. They are empty of a permanent lasting self. So three hallmarks or three characteristics of existence, the universe, we should learn. First one is everything is impermanent. Second one, everything is unsatisfactory, dukkha. Third one, there is no self, right? There is no permanent, lasting, enduring self is not found, whether it is in the human world or in the heavens. So when we talk about this impermanence, actually, ordinary people, when we talk about impermanence, they might think, okay, the King Dutugamunu, he lived in some period and he perished, and then somebody else came. So this period, it arose and it disappeared. Various epochs, ages, various seasons. Now the spring is there. There will be summer, autumn, winter. In this kind of sense, they might understand about impermanence. This kind of impermanence, even before the rising of the Buddha, knew that. The people knew this. This is not what really Buddha wanted us to understand. It is going far deeper, right? So, to understand the full breadth of the term impermanence, it is very important to understand that according to both mind and matter, right, they are actually kind of a flickering energy. They arise and pass away in a very rapid speed. Actually, there is no consciousness or some matter which exists even for a fraction of a second. That is how we have to understand the theory of impermanence, the truth of impermanence. It is in its real true depth. So giving some analogy, now when the mental part or name part is concerned, it is easier to understand and see in your meditation the flickering nature of your mental components is easier to understand, somewhat easier. So actually this consciousness, although it appears to be some solid continuum, it is not a solid continuum. It is just flickering energy. It can be compared to something like, now when you look at a fluorescent bulb, right? Those who have learned little bit of science, they know that this alternative current, that energy, it follows a sine pattern. That voltage, it goes up and comes down in a cyclical pattern. It is also called a sine wave. So that actually the light of this fluorescent bulb, it flickers at about 100 times per second. But our ordinary untrained mind cannot grasp that. So we perceive it as a continuum. So do with the images of your laptop or your smartphone. It flickers about 70 times per second. That means it just comes up and goes out. It is on and off. But our ordinary untrained mind cannot catch it. And it is perceived as a continuous light. So this anicca we have to understand in a deep sense. Also, Buddha said that now first one, everything is impermanent. Actually, when Buddha visited some heavens, and when Buddha said everything is impermanent, it is said that some gods who are very arrogant of their heavenly luxuries, right? They were sort of trembled, and they start to sweat because of this shock, because they were under the strong view that things are permanent, satisfactory, and there is self. So Buddha challenged, and the Buddha was ridiculed sometimes for that. We know that he was harassed, but Buddha is not such a coward to, give way to that kind of wrong views. Fortunately, he had all the prowess, all the strength, courage, merits to hail this truth in this world. No matter how bitter it is, for some people it is bitter. Of course, certain truths are bitter. Certain truths are uncomfortable. Truth is not always sweet in the ordinary people's heart and mind. So, Buddha said, everything is impermanent. Second one, it is very important to understand this. This formula comes many times in the discourses. Everything is impermanent. If something is impermanent, it is unsatisfactory. If something is impermanent and unsatisfactory, it is not self or a part of a self. So, dear friends, going back to the previous topic, I stopped there. About the first of the aggregates, material form, right? Now, this material form, now in a practical sense, we have to understand why Buddha said that everything is empty and unsatisfactory. Let's take this body. We are so kind of delight in this body as me or mine. It is a big thing in our life. Suppose if you observe a group photo, your batch photo or the last photo of your picnic, or right, once you look at that, the first thing you look for it is your own image, right? Among that batch photo or the family photo, among colleagues, you will find, wow, am I looking good, right? Am I in the right shape? We are so obsessed with what we call our body. So this is not a thing in itself. It is fabricated with many factors. The more we understand, more we are liberated, in the sense that we will not have unrealistic expectations with regard to body. And it is very freeing, very liberating. Not understanding this is very binding, very constricting, and consequently very punishing also. It causes so much of discomfort to take this body as me or mine. Now, let us understand the real predicament of this body. This body, as I told you earlier, does not exist, cannot exist on its own. It is held like this for some short period of time in the eyes of the Buddha, supported by many factors. What are the factors which hold this body to a limit, in a limited time? What we call our lifespan, right? This body should be again and again and again, it should be nourished by food. Aharupa nisaya. It should be supported by food. Asas passasu upanisaya. Breathing in and out. Now these days we know it very well, right? Of course, without food you can go for 4 or 5 days. Without water maybe 2 or 3 days. But without breath, maybe only 3 or 4 minutes. It is so important. And this body depends on continuous exercise. Here, I'm not talking about going to the gym and that exercise. This exercise is, we always change postures. Even in a very comfortable chair, we cannot stay for a long time, right? People want to turn this way, turn that way, and they want to get up. They want to walk a little. Then they want to recline on the bed. Always we change postures. And actually, this noble truth of suffering, to a great extent with regard to our body, this truth of dukkha or unsatisfactoriness is hidden by changing postures. We do not note that. And in mindfulness meditation, Satipatthana Sutta, we are instructed very well, eloquently, to catch this very elusive aspect of our life. So, this body, right, when it is fed once, when it is given one single meal, that energy does not last even a day, right? So again and again and again, we have to feed this body. Again and again and again, we have to clean this body. Exercise should be done, right? And now we learned that Pali word for corporeality is rupa. The etymological meaning of rupa is ruppatiti bhikkave ruppatiti ko bhikkave rupam. That means this rupa is called rupa because it is of the nature of ruppati. Ruppati means this bundle of matter or this matter is affected by hostile antagonistic forces. It is affected by hostile forces that spell disaster for its existing form. Right? Now, as an example, okay, when this body is concerned or the matter is concerned, what are its enemies or how it is affected? This corporeal body or matter, for that matter, it is affected by heat, it is affected by cold. When this bundle of matter is concerned, it is affected by thirst, it is affected by hunger, and various bugs, serpents, many things affect this. It is always changing. It is also compared to a dewdrop. It is compared to a dewdrop. Now in countries like Sri Lanka, all around the year, we see dewdrops hanging from a blade of grass. In the morning, we can see. In these countries, in the summer especially, we can see. Those dewdrops, during the night, they are formed and they are hanging from the tip of that blade of grass. With the rising of the sun, when the temperature goes up, right? What happens to that dewdrop? It becomes smaller and smaller and it disappears. So that bundle of water called dewdrop, it is not enduring. When heat attacks that, it disappears. Actually, it is very interesting to note that our body in the mother's womb, this also appeared just like a dewdrop, right? When conditions are there, this dewdrop, that zygote, it was growing, right? And it comes to some climax, it perishes, and just like a dewdrop, one day it will be gone. So you see, again and again and again, this happens, right? So it is affected by the hostile forces. What is sort of counter attacking that. So if we delight in this body as mine, me or mine, right? I have to do a lot of things to protect this body. I have to feed this again and again and again. Now, if you are 30 years old, you have fed this body for 30 years, right? First by your parents, then your caretakers, and then you yourself started to feed. Now, can you take a rest saying, oh, my dear body, I struggle a lot. I work so hard to maintain you, nourish you for 30 years. Now, could you please let me rest a little bit? Can I take a vacation? No, right? Can you do that? We cannot do that. Recently I read the kind of very interesting saying. I cannot remember the scholar or the famous person. He says, I have liberated 1,000 slaves. I could liberate another 1,000. only if they understood they are slaves. So this is exactly fitting to the teaching of the Buddha. Buddha liberated so many people, right? He could have liberated another batch to the sphere of noble beings, liberated beings, only if people understood or accepted that they are slaves. Actually, in this samsaric journey, we are just slaves to this body. Just like a slave, we have to take care because we have a distorted perception with regard to this body. So I told you about 3 hallmarks of the existence. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. Despite all evidence, people perceive what is impermanent as permanent because of the distorted perception, right? Despite all evidence, people perceive what is unsatisfactory as satisfactory. Despite all evidence, what is non-self is perceived as a self, a permanent lasting self. So that is why we sign up for this kind of body, name and matter, name and body process. So, so we need food to maintain this. Food also not just fallen from the sky. It should be cultivated. And what we call crops, rice plant, corn, banana, mango, etc., etc. They also some heaps of matter, and they themselves are conditioned things. So they should be we have to take care. They should be fertilized. Right time they have to be watered, right? And if there is a drought, those crops would be destroyed. That is heat element, which is some kind of hostile to the existence. And again, if the water element is too high, also they will be destroyed. Flooding is an example. Flooding means some agitated water element. So actually, there is a very narrow range we can live comfortably. If the temperature is very high, you will complain, and if it is extremely high, we will die. If the temperature is very low, we will complain, and below a certain level, we will freeze to death. If the water element is too low, we will complain about drought and dryness and such things. And if the water element is very high, even with regard to our body, we cannot sustain our life. So it is in a very poor situation, very poor. So those who delight this body as their self or part of self, they have to continually struggle to keep it going. So these houses, what is called sons, daughters, houses, vehicles, jewelry, money, all these things are just this matter. And they also have the same predicament. They also bear the same story. What is the story? They do not exist on their own. They are fabricated, they are conditioned. When those conditioning factors disappear or withdrawn, they will disappear. That is why always you have to take care of your sons, daughters, vegetable plants, fruit plants, your house. You have to pay rent, you have to paint it, you have to protect from various thieves, rats, right? There are so many problems. So let's move to the second of the aggregates, right? It is feeling tone. So for this topic, I would like to tell you there are three kinds of feelings: pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, and neutral feelings. The entirety of our life is mainly governed by pleasant and unpleasant feelings. Why do people like things like sons, daughters, wives, husbands? Because they create a pleasant feeling in their mind. Why people hate things like automobile accidents, disease, right? Death, rivals, thieves? Because they create some unpleasant feeling in their mind. When we analyze what goes on in our mind, we will understand this. So, if you want to enjoy pleasant feelings again and again and again, you have to work hard to attain that, to enjoy that. Let's say now, some people enjoy this watching movies. The fact that you might watch a movie 2 weeks ago, and that pleasant sensation is not there anymore. It is gone. If you want to enjoy those teledramas or movies again and again and again, you have to find time, you have to plug in things, and you have to attend to that. This feeling is very impermanent, right? Even in a momentary sense, it is also just a flickering energy, flickering kind of thing, as I mentioned earlier. So, even with regard to the pleasant feelings of eating food, now actually people in this kind of consumeristic world, people often use the term enjoying food. Enjoying food. Recently, I thought to myself that when I teach others, when I teach especially kids in English, I have to refrain using this consumeristic, misleading, anti-Buddhistic term phrase called enjoying food. No. In Pali, right, I don't think we don't have this expression called enjoying food. We consume food, right? And this is introduced by marketers to promote their products. Final target is amassing wealth. And those sometimes, those very wealthy companies, they don't know what to do with their money. Again, they don't have a sense of enough. Again, because of that distorted perception. Okay, going back to our topic, those who want to enjoy songs again and again and again, they have to listen to that. It is never ending job, right? So this feeling, actually, dear friends, Buddha compared this person, the sensual gratification, which is mainly made out of this pleasant feeling, that is dream-like. In a dream, you might become a king or a queen, but following day morning when you wake up, you are just the same person, right? Nothing has been changed. Likewise, no matter how much you invested in deriving, attaining, generating certain pleasant feelings, everything would be gone. They are very passing. They become otherwise. Those feelings would be gone in a flash, and you are just the same person. We cannot get hold of anything. We are just like a person carried away by a flood. We are carried away by the fast flowing water of a river, and desperately we reach the bank of the river, and we try to hold fast, let's say, some grass, some small branch, And wherever we touch, it just comes out. If you touch some grass, right? Grass cannot support that. You will pull it out, and with that bunch of grass, you are carried away by the fast flowing river. So sensual gratification is similar to that experience. Nothing is solid enough to support you. So everything is dreamlike. This pleasant feeling. Then comes the perception. Perception. It is a mental component. Recognition. Sanya. Right? Sanya. Sanya is like a mirage. Buddha compared to a mirage. Mirigua. Now, if you happen to come to this place in front of this screen, or if you happen to see a monk on your first birthday, when you are only 1 year old child, if you are brought to the temple and kept in front of a monk, there will be this image of the monk will be on your retina. Because as a baby also, biologically, your eye is complete. Right? Biologically, it is complete. It can do the job, what is done now. But you don't understand, this is a monk, this is Buddha, this is dog, this is cat, you don't understand. So after the growth, after the birth, our adults interpret what we see. They will say, they will teach us, oh, this is your mother, this is your father, this is dog, this is cat, etc., etc. And then we learn something. That mental component retains in our mind is called sanya, or the perception. So that perception, right? Then we start to think that when we see something, that perception with certain feelings, consciousness, it comes to our mind. And it is compared to a mirage. It is very misleading. So what is the mirage? It is a kind of an optical illusion. Sometimes in the, maybe during the summertime here in this country, when you look at a highway in the summertime when it is hot, at the far end, you might have seen this, it seems like water. Right? But when you go there is no water. Actually, what is there is the complete opposite, the heat. It is just an optical illusion. So this Dhamma teaches us that there's a very nice analogy. There are those deer live near the desert areas. During the very hot season, some deer, they perceive this mirage. On the other end of the desert, they perceive a pool like a water. And they desperately looking for water, they start to run into that direction. When they reach that direction, there is no water. Water appears at the place where they started at the first place. Then they desperately, they start to run back. And when they come here, there is no water. Only the opposite, heat is there. Again, they see the water in the other direction. So running back and forth in this way, they are exhausted to death. Exactly similar thing happened to us in this samsaric journey. You see, when we are battered by the struggle of this human world, we see the beauty essence in the heaven. When we have the problem of the middle class or the poor class, we perceive, okay, everything will be fine when we climb the ladder and reach the middle class or the high class. So people pay the price to reach that required level. Sometimes they succeed. And do we find that beauty or essence? We will never find, because it is just a mirage. mirage-like, illusion. Then sankhara, mental formations, right? Everything we do with intention, it is sankhara. So those who have this samkara, those who take sankhara as their self, they have to do those things again and again and again to keep that sense of self fresh in their mind. Then last one, consciousness, right? Through eyes, we experience eye consciousness. There is ear consciousness, nose consciousness, etc. So they are also very conditioned. For the eye consciousness to arise, there should be a good eye, there should be other sights, there should be light, right? All conditioned things. So in this way, our sense of self, we have to try hard. Yena yena hi manyanti tato tang hoti anyata, which means whatever way we have the sense of self, they are falling apart and nothing is left to us. This never ending struggle is there to repair this, to repair and feel safe and great. So dear friends, in the first noble truth, Buddha said, what is this noble truth of dukkha? Birth is dukkha, aging is dukkha, disease is dukkha, death is dukkha, and association with unloved is dukkha, separation from loved is dukkha, beloved is dukkha, and in short, all 5 clinging aggregates are dukkha. So what is the second noble truth? The cause of this suffering or dukkha, it is the craving. Yayan tanna pono bhavika nandiraga sagata tatra tatra binandini sayyatidang kama tanna bhavatanna vibhavatanna. This craving, this impulse, which causes renewed existence, it delights here, delight there, and there is this desire and lust, and this craving is threefold. Kama tanha, craving for sensual pleasures. Bhavatanha, people want to become a god, a man, a rich person, etc., etc. Right? And this vibhavatanha, it is the craving associated with nihilistic view. Right? So dear friends, as I told you earlier, to understand this, to have some sense, it elicits many topics and subtopics also. So in next week, I would like to continue this talk. Thank you very much for listening. Dhamma practice is important than ever in our life. So quite often it comes to my mind that how true Buddha was when he was teaching this teaching of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self. Right? Now it's very clear when we see what happens in our existence. Whoever thought that even very boastful and powerful nations will be brought to their knees by a pandemic of this sort? And this is not the first time this happened in our samsaric journey. Uncountable number of times we suffered this ordeal, and Buddha did his duty by imparting this Dhamma knowledge, and responsibility is with us to fathom these 4 noble truths and attain liberation. Thank you very much. Let us transfer merits to heavenly beings and also departed relatives and friends. ආකාසට්ටා ච බුම්මට්ටා දේවා නාග මහිද්దికා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිත්වා චිරං රක්칸තු ශාසනං ආකාසට්ටා ච බුම්මට්ටා දේවා නාග මහිද්దికා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිත්වා චිරං රක්칸තු දේශනං ආකාසට්ටා ච බුම්මට්ටා දේවා නාග මහිද්దికා පුඤ්ඤන්තං අනුමෝදිත්වා චිරං රක්칸තු මම් පරන්ති ඉදම්මේ ඥාතිනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉදම්මේ ඥාතිනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු ඥාතයෝ ඉදම්මේ ඥාතිනං හෝතු සුඛිතා හොන්තු ඥාතයෝ. Thank you very much for listening.
Dhamma folks, today joined with us was Bhante Chandananda from Calgary, and he gave us a talk on the first two truths, the noble truth on the dukkha and the noble truth on the cause of the dukkha. And he was able to clearly summarize all these aspects of the first two truths and flesh out about what they really meant, especially by giving practical examples. Normally we get to hear Dhamma talks about truths just from the technical words, but Bhante Chandananda went so far, to a level to talk about them with practical examples. One fine example is how he explained the 5 aggregates at the end. So he will be joining with us next Monday as well to talk about the rest of the 2 truths, which means the noble truth on what we call the noble truth on the cessation of the dukkha and the noble truth that leads to the cessation of the truth, dukkha samudaya, dukkha nirodha arya satya and dukkha nirodha gamini patipada arya satya. So we want to say a very respectful thank to Bhante Chandananda, and thank you Bhante Chandananda. Thank you everyone. Have a good night and have a good morning. Take care.